Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sacred Sound Summit. I'm Shannon Brown, sound healer, vocalist, educator, and ceremonialist, and I support my clients to awaken their voices and unleash the power of sound. Welcome to the Sacred Sound Summit. Awaken your voice, heal through sound, and transform your life. This week, you will experience a revolutionary online gathering of renowned sound healers, vocal alchemists, ceremonial leaders, and visionaries in the field of sound. This event will awaken, empower, and elevate your understanding of sound as a gateway to transformation, healing, and expanded states of consciousness. Today, I welcome Natalie Brown. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be a part of this.
Wonderful. Before we begin, I'd love to introduce you. Composer, educator, sound healing practitioner, and multi-instrumentalist, Natalie Brown has traveled the world performing, recording, and teaching music. She was trained classically, starting violin at age 4, and taught high school orchestra for 14 years. She's the founder and operator of Sounds Heal Studio, providing one on one and group sound healing sessions and workshops, as well as practitioner training through the International Sound Healing Academy. She completed Nata Yoga, which is the yoga of sound, teacher training in Rishikesh, India. She also has training and certifications in Reiki, craniosacral therapy, Qigong, acupressure, Celtic shamanism, and is an advanced level certified BioWell practitioner. Natalie's podcast, Sounds Heal Podcast, explores using sound for health and wellness with interviews of top innovators and practitioners in the field. It has been recognized as the #1 music therapy, sound therapy podcast across all major podcast platforms, which is amazing. Natalie's goal is to share the benefits of sound healing and help others use sound for self care, personal growth, and to heal. So, this is such an honor to have you here, Natalie. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shannon. Great to be with you.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to jump in. We're going to be talking about deep listening. We're going to be talking about different communities that sound healing is really great for. So I'd love to hear a little bit about just your foundation. You have such a rich foundation. You started music at age 4. Tell us a little bit about how music has been such a big part of your life, and what can we learn from that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember a time when it wasn't a part of my life. Just starting the violin so young at age 4, you're really developing language and motor skills at that time that it feels like I've always held an instrument my whole life in my hands. And what's so interesting, I like to share this story because I think that it really has lent itself or kind of been a part of my development when it comes to the auditory system, listening, is that when I was really young, age 3 and 4, it was discovered that I had hearing loss, ear aches, all these ear problems, which is really interesting. And so I had picked up the violin before I really had any recovery from that and ear surgeries, so that when I did have a successful surgery with the ears, my hearing was improved. um, that experience of going from things being very muffled, it's almost like you're underwater, and the violin sounded very different then to when my hearing became more clear. It was like this whole body experience being able to hear more clearly, and so that sense, the sense of sound was so strong at a young age that, it's really drawn me in as far as my career, my passion, my hobby. It's all been about using sound, both in performance, right, as a musician and professionally trained, and as a composer and educator. But I think even more so, coming more into this work with sound healing and being really sensitive to sound and its effects, and all that it can do to transform us. I'm just very, very sensitive to vibration, so it's been an interesting path because of that.
Yes. Wow. I can only imagine. I've seen on Instagram, there's these videos of people who were colorblind and they're given glasses where they can see color. And it doesn't matter who the person is, they start to cry. It is such a huge shift in perspective and a huge awakening. So even though you were a small girl at age 4, in those early years, that would have made a huge impact on you. And that awakening to sound, I can see that that's been this foundation for your whole life, is to help others to awaken to sound.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
your yeah, keep going.
And I was remembering a story that my mom told me from when I was very young. I learned the Suzuki violin method, which is a particular classical method, and you would have 100 violinists all playing the same thing. It was really about playing things a certain way, which is a great foundation for me. But apparently, in this sea of violinists that were playing in a very, kind of regimented, almost mechanical way, I was just swaying back and forth just with the music, just expressing myself, feeling it. And just imagining myself as the little girl feeling the music in an embodied, way like that is just a great representation for me of, how it developed.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Again, I'm sure we've all seen those videos of the kids on stage, and there's just that one child
Yeah,
that's like really standing out, you know?
I love
Um,
that.
I love it too. And we know that all children have the capacity for great creativity and for self expression, so it doesn't belong to just one person, but there are often those people. I know I was one of those kids as well. I'm very creative, very artistic, always loved dancing, music, singing, all of those things. But it doesn't mean that, we all have the capacity for all of these embodied experiences. So you're talking about embodied listening. And so let's talk a bit about that and the idea that we hear not just with our ears. What does embodied listening really look like in practice? How can it transform the way we relate to sound and silence?
Yeah, great question. I mean, embodied listening is listening with your whole being, right? We get kind of taught that we have these, senses, we're multisensory, and that we hear with our ears. But it's actually been shown, even scientifically, of course, that we hear with our skin, with our bones, so there's that bodily experience that we feel vibration, we feel sound. But even deeper, it's noticing when you listen to music or strike a bowl, where do you feel it? Maybe you strike a Himalayan bowl and you feel a little bit of an opening in your heart, in your chest, or maybe a very low tone, a gong, a didgeridoo. You feel it in your gut. So just kind of noticing where that energy affects you and moves is really interesting, to kind of consider ourselves as a being of resonance, that we're a resonant body, but also the how does it affect you maybe emotionally? There's certain sounds
Mhm.
that you're really drawn to, perhaps make you feel nostalgic, um, make you feel a warmth, just being more aware of these sounds and also the ones that help you regulate your nervous system versus ones
Mhm.
that don't, right? We can make choices with sound, and that comes with embodied listening. And I think the other really, really important piece, that I don't wanna leave out is nature.
Mhm.
Embodied listening is something that we can really learn from when it comes to using sound for wellness is what nature teaches us, is that it's not just sound, it's embodying and cherishing silence and the
Mhm.
pause and the healing in stillness,
Mhm.
right? And I think nature shows us that because there's the beautiful bird song, but then there's a pause before the response, right? They're not cluttering, they're not trying to talk over each other, or just the pause between a breeze or an ocean wave. I think that's an important part of listening that we can embody in our practice as well.
This is beautiful, and I think it touches upon both the practitioner who's maybe learning, who's watching this summit and is learning how to be a sound healer, but also the world that we're living in right now, and it's just rush, 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 and go, 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 and so loud and so chaotic in so many ways that it's important for people who are interested in, just being healthy in the world. Yeah. So I would love to just turn it into something that I know that you do a lot of is, you work with young people. You were a band teacher for 14 years, and I myself was an arts educator for many years as well. And I deeply understand the need for the arts, music, dance, all of this in schools. Can you talk a little bit about your work in schools with young people and especially teens? What are some of the challenges that they're confronted by right now, and how can sound support them? And then if you'd like to move on to any other age groups that you've worked with, I'd love to hear a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's, a big passion of mine is working with kids. And I remember as a high school teacher when I started many, many years ago now, their kids did not have cell phones yet. So I was teaching during that transition, that really massive leap into technology, and experienced the shift of communication, of eye contact, of distraction. So that was really, really interesting and revealing to me as a high school teacher. But there wasn't much discussion of mindfulness and those types of practices in the school I was at until right before I left to leap into this sound healing full time. They were starting to bring in meditation as an alternative to detention, which
Mm,
was just phenomenal. And the challenges I really think are now more than ever. I think the challenges for kids are more than I ever remember, and it does have to do a bit with what I just mentioned, that communication, the social media, the way they communicate with each other. And so when I'm asked to come into a school, it has a lot to do with finding alternatives for stress and anxiety, and what can they do to, what's the best way to deal with these things, whether or bullying, things like that.
mm.
And so, I definitely have offered sound baths, sound meditations in school, and over the years, it's become really more accepted. There's an awareness that's happening that it's not a foreign concept at all, and it's much appreciated by the students and staff, I must say, the teachers
That's
as
true.
to have that break, to have that
Yes.
time to just reset, slow down the mind. And I like to talk to high schoolers about, because most of them have music on all the time, or use it all the time. So I talk to them about how they're already using music in their lives and just kind of an awareness of how they make choices of what they're listening to, and that it could be a tool when they're really agitated, really, really irritated. Right? What's that song I really like that will help bring me down a little bit, you know?
Mm.
Or if I'm super tired this morning, I just have no get up and go. Okay, what is that song that's gonna help kind of, I mean, it entrains you. It can entrain you to the state that you want it to. So what's that rhythm? What's that feeling? Maybe I can create a playlist for myself to help shift how I feel when I need it. So that's been
Mm.
a really fun discussion with teens.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've mentioned to people about this in just as a basic shift that I see as necessary in schools is the bell.
Yeah.
This crazy bell that signals between classes. If anyone had a dysregulated nervous system, that bell is not gonna do any justice to them. What if we have all the schools around the world use a Tibetan bowl to shift into the next session, the next class, right? It just seems like a no-brainer, and what you said was brilliant about shifting from detention to the meditation space. It this really has to be a change that is going to happen in our world. I
You're
really
so right. You're so right. There has to be alternatives, and what I wish I would have known when I was in high school or, had offered when I was a high school teacher, these kinds of things we're talking about. And I think you're absolutely right, though. We often consider our visual environment, but what about our sonic environment? Is it set up for success and for calm? Not necessarily, definitely not in the schools that I've been. Like the bell you're talking about, the intercom, the buzz of the fluorescent lights, the chairs that just squeal when you move them on the tile floor. I mean, it's it's kind of interesting how um, we can get used to these sounds, but if you do start to tune in, it's not perhaps the best calm soundscape that schools are set up for.
That's right, and when we really think about it, the brain does not learn when it's in fight or flight. That's the foundation of this. It just can't learn.
Hmm.
And so, hello, all the teachers and people in power out there. Let's make this motion and figure out how to change this for students, you know? The brain can learn when it's calm and regulated, and we know there's school is often a safe space for kids. A lot of kids are coming from really, challenging home lives, and they wanna come to school, and they wanna feel like this is a place where they can, feel good in their bodies. Yeah. What about older folks? Seniors. What about little children? Have you had experience in these age groups as well? And what have you seen? Have there been changes in those areas as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've worked with both. And yeah, and it comes to that kind of interesting conversation about how different it is working one-on-one with somebody versus groups. Because no matter what group you're working with, they're individuals, everybody's having their own experience. But I can say generally from working with when I work in nursing homes, it's with dementia groups, residents there. Um, place locally, I work regularly with 3 different dementia wings, so just beginning stages, intermediate, and then advanced dementia, and so I can speak to that a little bit, and what is amazing about our mind, I mean, it really, really is amazing that even if events faces are lost, like, we can't remember that, there is a procedural part of our brain, the one that learned how to walk, learned how to brush our teeth, that learned muscle memory, lyrics, and song. So even if other things are forgotten, and what happens with dementia and Alzheimer's, music is still there, and it is such a rewarding and sometimes challenging, type of location to offer, but music, brings the spark back from my experience when I've gone, the advanced dementia wing. There's a particular gentleman that's really, really agitated, usually when I arrive, confused, angry. And as soon as we kind of gather around, I have now learned that the switch for him is "You are my sunshine."
Mm.
As soon as we start doing that, he is just jolly, dancing with the caretakers. It is his switch, to happiness, it appears. And I think what's really important, working with dementia that I've found, whether we're doing some drumming for motor skills or I'm kind of telling them about the instruments, um, is that it's interactive, right? It won't necessarily be your chill sound bath that they're falling asleep. You actually want to engage them. And sometimes I really do believe this, even more important than the sound is eye contact with them,
Mm.
smile, and your heart.
Mm.
Because when I've come in there, they're kind of isolated, the TV's blaring, they're all laying on recliners, whatever it is, but as soon as you can engage them and they're seen and they feel your energy, um, they start looking around and tapping their toes when you're playing the music, and it's really a beautiful, thing to see. The only way I can really, kind of segue to smaller children is that it probably would wanna be more interactive.
Mm.
Smaller children, maybe more like story. If you're offering an event or sound bath, what kind of story could go along with the sounds to keep them engaged and just have a fun time? Because 'cause they're very, very curious. Young kids are totally receptive to this work and very, very curious and excited. There's no kind of built-in skepticism yet that can happen over time with others, perhaps.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I often go into the neighborhood school where my daughter went, and, her old teacher will bring me in, and this is about grades 4, 5, 6, and they're at that really fun age where they're super curious, and but all they also have skills to regulate themselves and to lay down and to kinda, but they're still bonded with their best friends, and there's a lot of giggling, and there's a lot of like, "Whoa, this is really weird, but I like it," and, I would go around and even though they know they're supposed to be laying with their eyes closed, like, I would never obviously enforce that, but, they're trying really hard because they know I'm a special guest, and then they'll sort of peek up, and I'll give them a little smile and, like, maybe bring the gong a bit closer, and because it is such a fascinating experience to hear sound in this way for young people. It just if they've never had an experience like this before, it can be kinda mind-blowing, to bring those senses online.
Yeah. I think it's so cool. It's so exciting. It's so fun just to see that spark in people at any age, that kind of awe, that feeling of awe.
Yes, yes. I want to switch a little bit. Thinking about listening and music and sound. Listening really is shaped by culture. Uh, how much our culture puts an emphasis on music. Currently in the world we live in, music is kind of a passive experience. It's sitting back and listening. Whereas even 120 years ago and before that, and even 100 years ago, families would get together after dinner and either listen to the radio or an album if they had a early record player, or they would make music together. That was something like everybody in the family had an instrument. But how is listening and sound shaped by culture and how we move through the world?
Oh, great question. It has long been a communal, ritual, healing experience. It really has. And I'm so glad to see it maybe through sound healing and some other modalities that's starting to be remembered. We're kind of in a time of remembering, I think, of that aspect. The first time I really experienced that, besides being in orchestras and things like that as a youngster, was when I lived in Scotland for grad school. What struck me so much, and I had my violin with me and learned hundreds of fiddle tunes, is that they have such a sense of place and identity that is shared through music. There's a song about this hill over here where this historic event happened in 1417 or whatever it is, and here's the song. And so it's like how they share memories and history and tradition. And that just really, really fascinated me. And there are pockets of that in North America, but maybe not quite a rich tradition. And so that really fascinated me. And I've always been really interested in world music and ethnomusicology, the study of music in different cultures. And you see it in um, back to antiquity that music has been used for celebration, for community, for healing, from African drumming to Celtic keening, like sorrow songs, to Sufi mysticism, and Nada yoga in particular is one thing I've studied, is that music and sound It's not just a concert, it's not just a performance, it can be an embodied experience, right? Not just passive. And so to dive into the yoga of sound a little bit, it has a lot to do with your inner sounds and tuning yourself as a method of self-realization. That the more that we can tune within, we're actually connecting to the external sounds and even beyond to the cosmic hum. So, Nada yoga, the object of meditation is the sound stream, and really tuning into the subtleties. And I think that is a great practice for anybody getting into sacred sounds is to become more aware of the subtleties and sounds and almost in a relaxed state of concentration, just like how you do progressive muscle relaxation, where you kind of tense something up and relax. Just get yourself in such a relaxed state and meditate on sounds. And you might start to notice a little hum from something electric or your fridge or the birds in the distance. It's just getting an awareness for our soundscape. The more sensitive you become, the more um, that when you're offering sessions with people and working with sounds, the sounds are going to give you a lot of information about what's needed in the moment. You'll just be really intuitively or divinely guided as far as how to play your instruments and what to do next based on the needs and how the people around the sounds, um, basically the sound is amplifying people's energy, kind of like
Mm.
sonic Reiki. So yeah, that's a really great practice that I recommend for people. Um, that I kind of took from Nada Yoga is that relaxed concentration and active listening, just to get a bit
Mhm.
more of hypersensitivity to sounds.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. I love it. I used to work at an art museum, and we had a program uh, called well, basically, it was object meditation. So we would bring people into the museum, and they would each get a chair, and then there would be kind of a timed experience where they would choose an artwork, and they would just sit and meditate on the artwork. So what you're talking about is doing the same thing, but actually sitting and tuning into the environment. And it's done without judgment. It's just done with curiosity and noticing. And I love the links. I often come from my extensive background in visual arts and visual arts training and that sort of thing, but they're so similar, visual arts and
Detail.
sound.
Yeah, you look at the paint, you see the texture, you see the
Yes.
layers right down to the brush strokes. I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about with sound too. How could you approach your embodied listening in that way? All the different layers and textures to sound. Yeah.
Yeah, and composition and balance, all of the sort of foundational, concepts of one applies to the other. I was in a yoga class, maybe this was in my early days of kind of working with both plant medicine and awakening to sound, and I was in a yoga class at the end in a shavasana. And as they played this incredible soundscape, and it was more of a soundscape than a song, so maybe we could go into that a little bit. And the way I, really dove into this or, like, allowed this sound to move through me, I was able to visualize. I had opened my third eye, and I could see the sounds landing within this scape, and it was like creating an abstract painting where, there was, like, a long tone, maybe a drone that was like a color that washed across the canvas, and then there was some soft bells, and I could see them as little points, little, like, dots within the painting, and it was a three-dimensional space, which I found was, even more intriguing and beautiful that I could travel through this, almost like a virtual reality experience, but within my in my visual cortex. So it felt very synesthetic.
Beautiful.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. So, as sound healers, what you're saying is to, as people are um, uh, becoming more into this field and learning, you're talking a lot about this inner awareness and using intuition with your clients. Can you talk just a little bit more about that experience of intuition and how important that is?
Yeah, I think it's a really great thing, and it's so interesting, both for myself and also, people that I teach, whether they come from a musical background or no musical experience at all. So I do want to say you do not have to have musical experience to be getting into this work. In fact, you might be leaning more towards curiosity and intuition rather than analyzing what you're doing. So that could be a benefit. Um, yeah, intuition. So once you just have a bit of foundation as far as the instruments and playing them and kind of how they respond, the first thing I would recommend doing is getting to know your instruments. The instruments are a teacher, in fact, and they can very much be a mirror of your energy. I have some gongs behind me, and if I sit face to face with a gong and play it, I mean, there really is a connection between its vibration and mine. And what does it sound like today? And how do I feel today? So, playing an instrument daily, you'll start to notice gradually as you're tuning your ears, it sounds a little irritated today. There's a little bit of dissonance, or it's a little wobbly today, or wow, it's so resonant and deep sounding today. So that's telling you something. And so initially just be curious. Just be curious about your instruments, get to know them, um, be playful, and the more that you do, once you start introducing another person and you're playing for them or above them or around them, you've tuned your ears a little bit to realize when there's a bit of a sonic difference. And so eventually, the more that you do that, you're going to develop a language for what your instruments are telling you. Um, there can be sounds for inflammation. Your instrument might sound just a little bit different. If someone has a bit of protection around their heart, for example, you might notice a little bit different sound. But also a little bit, especially if you're working one on one and around someone, it might not just be the sound that you notice. You might feel like a density change in the bowl or the vibration when you're moving. So that's where it gets a little bit into sonic Reiki, that rather than using your hands to scan and feel energy, the instruments are amplifying what's happening with somebody's energy. And so that comes to, well, what am I hearing? What's going on there? That comes to intuition, right? Gradually, the more that you work with yourself, the more you're going to kind of understand the instruments, but also kind of your own reactions, gut reactions, and feelings, the more you'll kind of trust what you're hearing, and not question um, when you start getting information or experiences in your body, because intuition is a whole body experience as well, right? It's not just like a thought dropping in, or um, it's also gut reactions and different sensory experiences. So, uh, I just encourage you, first get to know your instruments and then work with a lot of people. Experience is the best teacher. And working with people that know that you're learning and you're trying things out, hopefully they'll be willing to share things, so that when you've worked with them and you kind of had a sense of um, maybe there was an area of concern or physical pain, they might say to you afterwards, "Oh, yeah, you were hearing that there because I just sprained my ankle," or, whatever it might be. That gradually, with time, with practice, you'll be getting a lot of information and learning more and more. Then what can I do about it? How can I smooth out and create more harmony for that person wherever they need it in their being. So it's a big, kind of area to talk about, but that's just a little bit about how that could work.
Yes, I love that so much. I do find that it's almost like when people are coming into this space and they're new to it, they wanna have a system. There's a real desire, "Let me know how to do it. I want steps 1 to 10." And, really, this piece of intuition is so much a part of the foundation of being a sound healer, that there has to be a lot of trust in this, and intuition is not something that traditionally in the Western world we've been encouraged to
Right.
explore,
Yeah.
right? Right? So, when I talk to my clients or students, about this, I have this sense that maybe I saw a movie at one point where maybe like an elfin character was given a magical stone and they had to find the magical stone and they're looking at the riverbed and they're looking and they're wondering which is the magical stone and they get this sense or this voice telling them, look for the one that is shining. So they look and then all of a sudden there's like a glow that comes from the magical stone. So I always give this as an example, like when you're doing your sound bath and you're working with, let's say, a bowl, but you get a sense I'm supposed to move to another instrument. Well, scan the instruments and the one that is meant to be played will start to shine in whatever that means, right?
Right.
It will draw you, and don't ever question that because it will be right.
Yeah, go with that first sense, otherwise our thoughts, our mind just gets in the way, and I like what you said there, a foundation is great, structure and protocols can be great, and that's a great start, but eventually you do kinda need to let that all go. Once you have that in your pocket, you kinda have the way you like to do things, the way you learned, then just trust, let that go because, protocols are fixed. They're one size fits all. And what you really want to do is follow what is needed in the moment for a particular person or group. So the foundations are great. That's a great way, as a nice stepping stone.
Yeah.
And then just follow, trust yourself. You'll have the
Yeah.
tool.
Yeah. Well, and also, both you and I have some background in shamanic healing, also Reiki.
Mhm.
So there are, I really recommend that, and I'm sure you do as well, that those sorts of processes are also going to be a fantastic foundation. Can you just speak a little bit more about that? And then I'd love to invite you to, if you'd like to share some sound with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think you're gonna find whether you're coming to sound from another modality or you're just starting to go down different rabbit holes, they're all different ways in. They're all different tools for an interconnected thing, which is about transforming our lives, empowering ourselves, and so, there's just so much correlation. I found, like I was saying, Reiki, really will enhance your work and just being more fine-tuned and sensitive. Shamanism in particular and journeying, is a particular way to get to altered states, but also to, um, learn to treat each moment as sacred.
Mm.
Each moment as a blessing. It's a way to get a bit more into a practice, and learn these things about creating sacred containers and safe containers for the people that you're working with. So there's yeah, follow what draws you. I think whatever types of modalities, will really lend itself to the work that you're doing, with sound. And when it comes to shamanism and actually, the sound I'm about to offer, uh, what I'm gonna do is a little bit different than, what I might normally do in a sound bath. I often play a lot of bowls and a lot of, gongs, but this is gonna be a little bit different, uh, instruments than maybe are common. I just kind of felt called to do that. It's gonna be an octave mandolin, native flute, my voice, and the violin. And what I encourage you to do is something that's really encouraged in shamanism is daydream. Use your imagination. Just see where it takes you. Don't have a particular destination, a particular plan. Don't cling to an outcome. Imagination is a sacred bridge. It's a sacred bridge, and it allows spirit to do the work. So that's what I'm gonna encourage you to do as you experience this sound offering is where does it take you? Where do you go? And just be open.
Mm. Oh, I love this. Your imagination is a sacred bridge. Ah, that there's a beautiful soundbite right there. Thank you so much for that
Mm,
gem.
yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely.
I
I
love
think
it.
so. I think so. Yeah, and it takes us back to gosh, I don't know about you, but probably most people I used to daydream a lot as a child. My imagination was vivid, and I think
Mhm.
there's a real power in starting to bring back that type of light,
Yeah.
and sure, into our inner vision.
Yeah, yeah. Einstein said when somebody asked him, "Would you rather have knowledge or imagination?" And he said, "Imagination, of course, because knowledge is finite."
That's right.
And so let's move into that space of imagination and really honor it and honor all of these beautiful gifts that you've shared right now of using our intuition and listening and just let our minds open and go on a little journey. So thank you for sharing, Natalie.
The moment to get a little bit more comfortable than you already are. Maybe notice that you can relax your jaw or your shoulders can relax a little bit and start to bring yourself inward by focusing on your breath and just give yourself permission to let go. Just be. There's absolutely nothing you need to do right now.
Wow. Natalie, I had to run out and get some Kleenex. That was so beautiful.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm so glad you felt it.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Wow. I think what is coming over me right now is just all the people in the world who are suffering to have an experience like that.
That's really my heart hope is, that I and all of us can have a ripple effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And not letting fear overtake us that I'm not going to sound good enough or it's not going to be right or my voice isn't perfect. Just to begin to share this magic, this beauty, thinking about all those lonely people in this seniors residence who are just lost, to have something like that.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, it's not to have musical training I have, it's to have a big heart. That's, if you can share your heart, your hope, your highest good, your best interests with whoever you work with, that's it. That's what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for reminding us of that and just this incredible potential for all people. May this sound, may this music, may this resonance move into the rest of the world. So thank you for sharing your gifts, for the path that you've led to get to this place. And yeah, I'm so excited for people to experience this talk that we've just had and the beautiful music that you shared. So thank you very much for being a guest here on the Sacred Sound Summit.
Thank you so much, Shannon. It's really been a joy to be with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And for everyone watching right now, please go to the Facebook group. Let's engage. I want to hear your thoughts. How did Natalie's music move you? Did you have visions? Did you have messages? Did you have an emotional reaction like I had? And looking forward to seeing you again for more episodes in the Sacred Sound Summit. So thank you, everyone. Bye bye.